MetaShare and see if it is a fit for you.
7:37, check of the roads. Team Hochberg Traffic Center time in Jim.
Careful on the roads this morning. You may have some slick spots with the earlier mist and also the temperatures just above freezing this morning. In Niles, there's a crash on Howard Street westbound at Caldwell. In Bloomingdale, a collision westbound Schick Road at Gary Avenue. Channahon area, there are mild roadwork delays on I-55 northbound River Road to Blodgett, southbound Arsenal to River Road. Traffic moves well on the Edens to Kennedy. The Eisenhower's at its base travel time, 28 minutes, 390 to downtown. Mount Stevenson, just a tad congested approaching the Rhine. The Rhine's okay. I-57, Bishop Ford looking good. Tollway traffic moves nicely, and northwest Indiana's fine right now. It's traffic. I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next in our 1-hour heating and air conditioning weather center. Sun and clouds. 56 today, 33 at O'Hare. Next news at 8. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560 The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, and your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, and their perpetual quest to create controversy where little exists. The D.C. press corps has yesterday took Trump's comment about trying to get everybody, or at least some buddies, back to work by Easter, by April 12th, 3 weeks from now. This is Trump at the Fox News town hall with Bill Hemmer.
You said that we would, I'm paraphrasing now, you would like to be back to normal by Easter Sunday.
Yes.
That's 19 days from now.
It's okay.
Is that true? Is that possible? Or is that false?
I think it's possible. Why isn't it? I mean, we've never closed the country before, and we've had some pretty bad flus, and we've had some pretty bad viruses, and I think it's absolutely possible. Now, people are going to have to practice all of the social distancing and don't shake hands and wash your hands and all of the things that we're doing now, but we have to get our country back to work. Our country wants to be back at work.
And as usual, the reporting on this lacks the context of the follow-up question from Bill Hemmer to Dr. Deborah Birx, who was part of that panel at that town hall. What do you think about what President Trump said, Dr. Birx? And here's something the press could take a lesson from. Restraint, staying in her lane. Dr. Birx.
I think what's really important is a lot of what we've done is we've tackled this epidemic the way people said we should have tackled flu in 1918. And they compared St. Louis, who took this kind of approach, to Philadelphia. What we're trying to do now is use 21st century solutions and trying to get data down to the most granular level so we understand what's happening at the area of the spread. So even today, there are counties throughout the United States that don't have their first case. So our job is to make sure they never have their first case and ensure that our efforts are focused on where the virus is expanding. That can be done today because we have that level of granularity. So that's what the president has asked us to put together, to use these 2 weeks to get all the data from around the country and all the data from around the globe.
And then we'll make a decision, as Trump clarified when he expanded on the topic at the evening briefing.
Also, economists and other professionals working to develop a sophisticated plan to reopen the economy as soon as the time is right. One based on the best science, the best modeling, and the best medical research there is anywhere on Earth.
What's unclear about that? What's unclear about it? Not a frackin' thing. The media continues to beclown itself in their reporting on this. Larry Kudlow, Trump's top economic advisor, was asked prior to the passage of the aid package in the wee hours this morning, well, if we're going to reopen at Easter, then why do we even need the $2 trillion or $6 trillion, really, $6 trillion aid package?
If we can target zones where the virus is less prevalent, things are safe, we're not abandoning the health professionals' advice, but there is a clamor to try to reopen the economy and perhaps I'll call it less of a shut-in. And so that's one piece. That's yet to be determined, but it's one piece that's being looked at. We still going to need the assistance because in the next week or two or three, you're still going to have a lot of hot zones. You're still going to have shut-ins. There's no miracle here. We're not just flipping a switch. So the assistance is so vital. Let me tell you, it's $2 trillion program and $4 trillion of lending power from the Fed. That's a $6 trillion package. And by the way, the Fed can't act fully unless we pass Phase 2 because Phase 2 contains the increase in the Exchange Stabilization Fund, which is the equity piece for the Fed lending. So the U.S. government is the guarantor, not the Fed. So those two packages go together. $6 trillion, by the way, is about almost a third of the economy. It's a very big number and covers, as you know, small businesses, payrolls, unemployment, and so forth. So we need that. We need that, and that, in effect, will hopefully, perhaps the word is bolster or maintain the economy.
More on this. We're pleased to be joined by Steve Moore, economist, Wall Street Journal columnist, author of Trumponomics. Steve, thanks for being with us.
Hi, Dan. Hi, Amy.
Are you pleased with the passage of the $2 trillion aid package?
Not really. I mean, we do have to provide people some short-term relief for sure, especially because it was the government that shut down our economy. It's the government that put people in the unemployment lines. And so because of that, you need to help people short-term to get through this. And of course, you need to provide some loans to businesses so that we don't see, millions and millions of small businesses collapse in this time when they have no revenues. So I don't have a problem with that. I don't love it, but I will say this. I'm very worried about some of the things that Nancy Pelosi insisted on in the bill. And one of the things that I find really troubling, maybe the most troubling thing, is that Nancy Pelosi insisted on 4 months of 100% unemployment insurance. So in other words, for the next 4 months, workers will be guaranteed 100% of their paycheck. That's crazy. That is such bad economics. We're going to hopefully in 2 months be somewhat back on the job. How are we going to get people back on the job if we're providing 100%?
Steve, we're losing you a little bit there.
What's that?
You were cutting out a bit.
Sorry. I was just saying, how are you going to be able to provide 100%? How are you going to get people back on the job if you're providing them with a paycheck that they don't have to work? I mean, look, there are incentives in America, and to provide people with these checks for that long, I think is absurd. But the most important thing is that we don't, that we do what the president is talking about in a very health-conscious and strategic and smart way of starting to get sectors of the economy back up and running. It's amazing the backlash from liberals. And by the way, I shouldn't even say that. There has been a backlash. Even some of my family members think that it's crazy. We just have to have everybody stay in their caves. What I'm here to say, and I think I've been involved in this process and met with many people in the White House on this, that that the economic consequences of keeping our economy shut down for 7 and 12 weeks is unimaginably bad. And we're talking about destroying millions of businesses. We're talking about an unemployment rate of 40 or 50 million people. We're talking about the liquidation of people's lifetime savings. We can't do this. We have to be smart about how we get the economy up and running because, Dan, it doesn't matter how much money the Fed prints. It doesn't matter how many $1,000 checks the government writes to people. If we're not producing anything, there is nothing that people can consume. And eventually you're just going to run out of the goods and services that we depend on.
Well, then how can you go back to work and still keep people safe? I mean, in Florida for a while, they had the restaurants open and everybody was 10 to 12 feet apart. All the tables and the servers wore masks and gloves.
Well, Amy, I mean, that is the question. We have to be very smart about coming up with strategies that would keep people as safe as possible, wearing gloves, wearing masks, keeping social distancing, and the sequester.
Steve, you're cutting out on us again. Yeah.
Pardon?
You're cutting out on us again.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry about that. I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's good.
We have to obviously isolate people who are over the age of 70, who are by far the most susceptible. You have to be smart about this. It's not one or the other. And what I'm saying is it is not an option to keep our economy shut down for 10, 12 weeks, because the economy will be, in many people's opinion, much worse.
All right, we're going to try to effort Steve Moore back. Obviously, he's got a bad cell phone connection there. So we'll try to come right back and see if we can get Steve Moore.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM 560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
A business needs to be built on a great foundation, one with the framework of integrity and tradition. Chapel Design Build delivers just that, providing design build and general contracting services using Butler Steel Building Systems. Their projects dot the landscape from O'Hare to DeKalb. You see their work in office and warehouse additions, recreational facilities, large-scale distribution centers, and manufacturing plants all over northern Illinois. Partnering with Butler Steel Buildings, Chapel Design Build has developed an extensive subcontractor base and valuable market knowledge to get your quality-built project completed on time and on budget, ensuring your project is a success for your business and one that you will be proud of for years to come. The goal is to build lasting relationships with their clients using buildings that last from Butler. Get started on your next building project built with Butler Steel. Visit chapeldb.com. That's Chapel D as in design, B as in build.com.
AM 560, The Answer.
Dan and Amy, all right, we're back with Steve Moore. Steve, you were just talking before we lost the connection there about the impact on the economy if we don't get back to work. And the president put down that Easter marker and with all the obvious caveats about, where we're at and what our infectious disease experts say and so on and so forth. But let me just ask you, one of the things that Kudlow said and the president sort of indicated about maybe, getting portions of the country back to work where there hasn't been a significant outbreak. Remember, there's no national order in place. So I wonder if it's going to require some intrepid governor or mayor to make a move in that direction the same way that governors and mayors made the move in the direction of shutdown.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Dan. I mean, can the president override what these governors like Pritzker and Governor Cuomo and others are saying about a shutdown? That's a good question. It's a constitutional question. But we also have to ask the constitutional question of what kind of authority these governors have. I mean, do they really have the right to shut down their state economies? I don't know if people in Illinois are asking those questions.
Yeah.
In Maryland, where I live, the governor saying you can't be outside after, curfews, essentially a martial law, and I do worry also just about the civil liberty implications of the government, asserting these rights. And it's worth asking. I don't even know what the answer is, but the idea that the government can tell every American what they can do, when they can leave their house, when they can go to the grocery store, where they can congregate, those are unbelievable assertions of power by the government that we've never seen. I don't know if there's any backlash in Illinois about this.
No backlash yet. We're a docile people when it comes to state control here. But there is, this will be state constitution as well as federal constitution. There are limitations on the duration of the exercise of these emergency powers by executive fiat. So, in a few weeks, you'll be bumping up against that in Illinois for sure, perhaps in other states, to your point. I wanted to get to... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
There's another point. There's another point here, which is that, look what happened yesterday to the stock market. And I'm not saying this should be driven by the stock market, but look, we all have our life savings in the stock market. And when you see the stock market fell like it did in 1929, we want to make sure that we're not crushing every business in America that obviously needs a value of their stock or they're out of business. And the stock went way up when Trump said, hey, we're going to start in a smart way. And a few to get the economy reopened. And, it provided a optimism and some confidence that this isn't going to go on for 3 or 4 months, and that we are going to be able to get back to some degree of normalcy. And, as you guys were suggesting, you have to do it in a smart way. There are some areas of the country, like City, where I think something like over a third of the cases are in New York City. To be smart about, well, maybe we don't reopen New York City, but, Boise, Idaho, they can get back to some sense of normalcy because, the other thing is public health is associated with things like unemployment rates and
Right.
things like, economic security. So if you're gonna put 50 million people in the unemployment line, you're gonna have over several months. You're gonna have suicides, drug overdoses. You're gonna have heart attacks. I mean, there is real health consequences to shutting down the economy, and some health officials aren't taking that into account.
I wanted to go back to the aid package that was passed in the early morning today. You mentioned.
By the way,
I'm sorry.
Did it pass?
Yes.
Yes. Mhm.
While you were sleeping.
Yeah.
In the House and Senate?
It passed out of the Senate. I don't believe it's been taken
it's
up in
not.
the House yet. Mm-mm.
Well, I hate to tell you, Dan, it's going to get worse in the House.
Well, I hear you. And so, but the Senate version, there were some changes. One is the threshold for couples for the check came down, for doubling the check came down to $150,000 and as opposed to $198,000. You mentioned a key one as well: 4 months full salary unemployment benefits, which is remarkable. And I just wanted to make sure that there weren't any other things that you noted that we should also note.
Well, I haven't seen the final bill. I do know, everyone knows that when Nancy Pelosi wants to put in this bill, the Green New Deal,
right.
They've got climate change. That stuff is absurd. It is despicable that Nancy Pelosi would try to turn this into a Bernie Sanders wish list of programs. So I have to see the final. By the way, this bill is, the last time I saw it, was 1,500 pages long.
Wow.
Folks, there's a lot of bad stuff in a 1,500-page bill, and the longer it takes to get this thing done, it should have been done a week ago. How hard is it to say we're going to send $1,200 to every person, and we're going to provide bridge loans to employers that need to save businesses? It's become a Christmas tree, and it's. You would think that can the left put their obsession with climate change aside for 2 months before we can get this aid package to people who might be dying from coronavirus?
I hear you. And by the way, just to clarify, McConnell saying the Senate will meet at 11 a.m. Chicago time today. Did not set a time for the vote, but they've got agreement. So it's agreement, not a vote didn't happen, but it's agreement that the vote will happen sometime today.
So Dan and Amy, tell me how you're going to get people back to work, because the most important thing is once we do have this coronavirus, God willing, contained in the next 3 or 4 weeks or 5 weeks, how do you get the economy to boom so we don't see a 25% decline in our living standards? And one of the things you have to do is get people back on the job. How are you going to get people back on the job if you're providing people a 100% paycheck for not going back to work? Liberals don't believe in incentives. They probably think it stimulates the economy. Remember, Nancy Pelosi was the one in 2009 who said the best way to help the economy is to give people more food stamps and unemployment benefits.
I completely agree with you. I agree with you. Steve Moore, economist, Wall Street Journal columnist, Trumponomics author. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Okay, guys. Stay
Take
safe.
care.
Thanks. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You've made the switch, and it feels so good. You've switched to Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
The number one fear amongst retirees today is running out of money in retirement. And that's with good reason, because the last thing you want to be is 75 years old, full of life, and flat broke. Hi, this is Tom Fortino, host of the Alpha Wealth Hour, heard every Saturday at 9 a.m. here on AM